name is Kristiane Ravn Frost. I come from Denmark, but I have been traveling a lot, and a lot of my life I have not lived in Denmark. I started macrobiotics when I was 25, I think. At least I started teaching in 82, when I'm born in 56. And I did the Christie Institute in London in 81. And then I went to Norway with my first husband, and we were there for 5 years and got macrobiotics started there, both with the import business, importing foods, and a center where we were teaching. And somebody else got a shop going and a little restaurant going, so that was like the beginning of my macrobiotic career. That was back, and then we always had the idea to not stay in Norway for more than 5 years, and somehow he hung around and I left. So I was back in Denmark for a year, and I met my second husband, who was Swedish. So I ended up in Sweden. When I went to Sweden, then we started, firstly we lived in Gothenburg for a while, and I started teaching there. Then we went out in the countryside and lived there, and I started teaching, and I produced miso. Big barrels with 500 pounds at a time in tempeh. And also I was teaching, so a little of each, not a lot of either, because I got small kids and we grew our own vegetables. And so that was like that phase of teaching. And after we separated, I stayed there for about 3-4 years. And then it was time to move back to Denmark after I'd been away for 20 years. So in 1998, I moved back to Denmark and I started teaching in Denmark. And at that time, I guess I can say that the macrobiotic scene in Denmark was very different. They were more strict. They were, what would you say, less life, less flexibility than what I knew from Sweden and the way we were doing things. I chose to not call what I was doing macrobiotics because macrobiotic did not have a good name in Denmark. Things has changed over the years, and one of the things that has changed was that the man who was kind of leading the macrobiotic scene, he died from cancer when he was 62. So that means that macrobiotics has, so to speak, been falling apart. When I started teaching macrobiotics back in 82, it didn't take very long time before I realized that it's easy to teach people what to eat. The difficulty is for people to do it and to follow through. Fine, as long as they are threatened, like I have cancer, so I need to eat that well to not die, or when people have this kind of situation, they will do it for a while out of fear. But to actually get people to do it as a positive choice, that has been something that's been concerning me a lot over the years. And those years I was in Sweden, I was thinking a lot about how to do it differently. I think the first year I was in Sweden, I started really looking at the whole idea of detoxing, which has been very big in macrobiotics. And I was starting to look at what does that do to our self-esteem? Or to our feeling of self-worth. I mean, it's like detox. I need to get rid of who I think I am. It's like a wrong thinking. It's definitely not empowering to think that way. So then I started thinking about we need to do it differently, because when we think the other way around, we say, okay, if I have a closet full of clothes and I'm thinking I need to get rid of them, that's going to be a hard job But if I go out and I buy some new clothes and I put them in there, the old one is rather easy to throw out. It's not nearly as difficult. In the same way I see it very much with our regeneration of our body. If we could focus on just building up the body, and that's the way I teach macrobiotics. The focus is on building up the body, and then whatever we don't need will go, just because we don't need it. The body is selective. I mean, we're always biased. If we have a good choice and a bad choice of two different kind of foods, in essence, we'll usually pick, like from mere instinct, we'll pick the best quality. if we have any kind of understanding. Our body, our cells will pick the best quality, unless there is some mental programming that makes us want to destroy ourselves. So I started looking into a lot of our mental programming. How does that connect with food? In the 90s, I had attracted very interesting clients, because I attracted clients that did not have, the usual way of reacting on foods. They could eat certain foods that should be good for them, and they would eat kuzu and get diarrhea. Well, we know it works the other way around, They would have these kind of very odd reactions. And I started looking at, I'm not sure if you're aware of the model we have, what you take in comes out, but then there is the identity in the middle. And I started looking at what is really going on in that middle part, the digestive part. How could that be that when you eat something, it doesn't do the same to everybody? What is really going on there? And a lot of what's going on there, I found, is the programming of the mind. And this goes back to, I was also questioning, why did I keep eating macrobiotics? Many people, they fell off. I didn't. And when I really looked into it, I think the real reason why I could stick with it, through divorces and all kinds of crap, my life hasn't been just smooth. Why did that happen? I think part of it was that when I was young, I had a strong spiritual experience, actually, before I started macrobiotics, which showed me how the mind works and how our, we could say, mind programming works. And I changed some things there, some big inner programming. And so I was really, for many years, I was concerned about how do we get this whole mindset thing to play together with the food, with our health, because it does come together. And it took a long time. I started looking around because I thought, first of all, I never thought that spiritual experience I had was something special, because I was only 23. And what you experience when you're 23, you think there's a lot out there who has it and has it a lot better. So it took me 21 years, which brought me to 2001, to actually realize I had something very special. And that year, that whole spring, I sat mostly down on my behind, and I worked through how can I make this available for other people. I created a program, I created a procedure for changing mindsets, which I call the transformation procedure. And it's actually based on the 7 principles of macrobiotics. You know that everything comes out of one infinity, everything changes, and front and back and beginning and end and all that. It's actually around that. So it's really come out of macrobiotics in a sense, yet it's also come out of that spiritual experience I had. So I created that procedure and I started testing it on people, and people had amazing results. Things they'd worked with for years and been struggling with went away from one session. So I had these amazing results with people. Then I thought, okay, let me try to teach a group. And that worked well too. And then I started a training where I started training other people in being able to teach these things or coach these things. All of a sudden, in about a year after I developed it, or maybe even a little less than a year after I developed this whole thing and was in the middle of my first group of taking my first group through the coach training, I had a cancer patient coming to me. She had 4 brain tumors. There was a clairvoyant person that said, well, no. You see, when she called to set up an appointment with her, she said, no, you're not going to me, you're going to see Kristiane. So she came to me. And as we worked through that, I thought, let me use this transformation procedure first to make her ready for food change. That was my thinking. It really blew my mind, because I had her feel into these tumors, and I had her sense into them what they were about, and it took a little while for us to get to it, but then it turned out that it was about her not trusting herself. We worked through that with the procedure, so she came to a place of trusting herself. And I said, well, how does that feel now? Well, it feels like, just there's a little something there. Okay, we worked through that too. No, it feels clean now. Perfect, I said. Then let's get to make some diet changes for you. No, I don't need that, she said. And what did I do? Because, with my macrobiotic background, I knew she needed that. I couldn't find a way of doing it because we just worked with her about trusting herself. So I couldn't find a way of doing that without annulling all the work we'd just been doing. I didn't want to do that. So I ended up letting her go, and I felt really, really bad. I felt I'd not been professional because I knew she needed that diet change. But I couldn't find a way, and I was concerned, should I call her and say I made a mistake? Or no, I didn't do that anyway. I've kind of felt embarrassed. And about 3 weeks later, I got this email from her saying, I think, you want to know. I've just been for a routine check, a routine scanning, and they can't find the cancer anymore. There's just a little shadow where it was. And now they think they misdiagnosed me, she said, but you and I know better. And that was the first time where I got kind of real strong proof about how connected our mind and body are. And I've had several of these kind of situations. Does that mean I can do that every time? No way. Because not all cancers cancer has many different reasons. They are also sometimes biological reasons. They also sometimes are pollution. They are sometimes relationships. They can be based on other things that you can't just change within the person that way. For me, that one experience with her with the brain tumor was really blowing my mind, because it really showed me that also in macrobiotics we have an indoctrination about how strong food is. And no, food is not everything. I still eat very well, probably better than most people, because I think it's a very good foundation. But I do think there's other things. And how do I teach them? Well, basically what I do when a person comes to me for consultation, what we do is that we start looking at what's going on. And then we look deeper to find what is the cause of what's going on. And then we go to the cause of it. And sometimes the cause is to be found in diet and lifestyle. Sometimes it's in lack of movement. Sometimes it's in mental attitude. Sometimes it's in relationships. So I'd rather say that what I do now is when I first learned macrobiotics, I thought, oh, we're going to the cause. Yeah, but we're just looking at one possible cause, which a lot of it is food. And macrobiotics is known, like if you say you do macrobiotics, oh, that's a diet, isn't it? It's been associated with a diet, and for me, macrobiotics is not a diet. It includes an approach to food, but we have the same approach, like where we're really looking at things as energetics, whether it's food or whether it's clothes or whether it's relationships. It's about the energy and the energy quality, all thoughts. Even our thoughts. That spiritual experience I had that brought me down to actually see that even a thought or a feeling, that actually has a physical shape. It has a three-dimensional shape in our consciousness when we look at it from outside. When we emerge from inside, we are like drowned, we feel the feelings, we have the images, we have the thoughts, it's all going on. But when we can step all the way outside, it's actually having a three-dimensional form. I am, right now, I have been, not just right now, but during the last few years, we have a union in Denmark that's using me quite a lot to talk about like stress, leadership, all these kind of things, which apparently has not much to do with food, but it does. And it certainly has to do with yin yang and the energy thing. I am teaching quite a bit on Novo Nordic, which is a place for producing medical, insulin and metformin. They are very big on that. So I'm teaching quite a lot in those kind of places where people definitely don't think alternative. Well, some people do, but the majority of them don't. And it's very interesting because they actually get the energetic perspective. But I do not say yin and yang. I do not make it mystical in any way. But I do it simple things like rhythm of the day. Like when we get up in the morning, then all our energy is like, we're gathered, we're inside, we're in touch. Then as we go through the day, we expand, we put our energy outside of ourselves. What happens at the end of the day? Then we're kind of getting empty. Then we need to return and put our energy back in. That's yin and yang. Well, what happens is that sometimes people do not come back in when they need to recharge. What do people do? They do the opposite. They say, oh, I could do a little more. And they actually keep working or keep doing things and keep turning outward even when they need to turn inward. And then I'm talking about what do we need to do in order to be able to keep turning outward when we actually need to turn inward. What are we doing at that time to be able to do that? We do some kind of stimulances. Whether it's sugar, coffee, alcohol, cigarettes, chocolate, you name it. We do some kind of stimulants to be able to overexert ourselves. And sooner or later, what happens when we've done that for a long time, what happens? We crash, or an accident happens, or whatever. It just comes back to us. And when I define stress as going over that line, where we are not turning inward, where we need to turn inward, where we sense that, when I come with that definition of stress, then people can see how they can deal with it. So that's a different way of teaching, but it's still the macrobiotic thinking. And then when people come, then the next thing that happens is that then people get interested in my training, because I also do have practical tools to actually deal with this mind chatter and stuff. And practical tools, which basically is, going into it and going out of it, basically in different varieties of it. And when people start feeling that these things work, then they get more interested. Then they may come to my 5-day workshop. I have 2 5-day workshops. One that's focused around regenerating or activating our self-healing powers, I call it, which is very much focused around food. And there they'll learn about yin-yang, they'll learn about macrobiotics. They won't come to a macrobiotic course that they know of, but they will get it. And the other one where we actually do work with the mind. And they won't realize that that is also based on macrobiotic thinking. They won't realize that unless they start doing the training with me. And as we go through the training, they will get macrobiotics, but they'll get it in through the back door. And I am just now, since now we've had a few years in Denmark where there is nobody else teaching macrobiotics, I'm thinking we could reintroduce macrobiotics, but from a different perspective, the word. So I would like to have that word being clear, because it's clear to people when they've been around me, then it becomes clear that that's where the source is. The way I look at macrobiotics is that when you're looking at the macrobiotic theory, and that's how I understood it from the beginning when I came into macrobiotics, is it's like, if you have a fan and you have like one little nut that puts it all together, I can see macrobiotic could be that. It has the potential of being that because there is the energetic understanding. And you can take all kinds of different approaches to health and medicine and life, and you can put them in there and you can use the macrobiotic theory to understand them and to find out when is this appropriate and when is that appropriate. Because there's nothing that cannot be used. It's more a question of what is appropriate at which time. Given that macrobiotic really is so big, and I think it is, I think that what has happened in many macrobiotic teachings is that nobody has been able to take the bigger picture. Well, somebody here and there, but on a broad scale, we've picked out aspects of it. And different places, we have different aspects of macrobiotic being taught. We can say that. And they are all valuable in different situations. And usually people attract clients or students that resonate with the aspect they're teaching. So I actually don't think it needs to be a problem, but it gets to be a problem when we want to have one uniform approach to macrobiotics and we put it and we try to put it into a too small shape. Those places where that's done, and that is part of why what happened with macrobiotics in Denmark. And that's happened some places. And once we try to squeeze it into, a too small shape, then it really shows up. Then we'll find exceptions. We'll always find places where it doesn't work. If we only do the food-focused part, as I started attracting clients that hell, you know, they react atypically. You know, sooner or later we'll start attracting things that does not work within that. Like then we promoted macrobiotics as a cancer cure, and what happened was, hey, all of a sudden we get people eating very nicely macrobiotics, they get cancer. Well, I mean, every time we try to put it into a small box, then we'll find places where that approach doesn't work because we're making it too small. But I think it has a tremendous power if we stay with the real essence of it. And then I think it can be practiced in many, many different ways. And I like to say there's many right ways. Just to break that one, because it has been a big thing in macrobiotics that my way is right. No, my way is right. It has been a big thing. And actually it doesn't serve us, on the contrary. But there is many right ways. And they are all right in some ways and some places.